Welcome to QI, where tonight it's a battle of the sexes, as QI looks at girls and boys and gender. Let's hear it for the girls! And huddled under the glass ceiling we have Sugar and Spice, Ronnie and Kona. And all things nice, Sandy Toxvig. A big hand for the boys. Slugs and snails, Jack D. And a puppy dog's tail, Alan Davis. Vive, of course, la différence. Let's hear our gender-specific buzzers. Sandy goes. Ronnie goes. Jack goes. And Alan goes.
Hello, darling.
Well, tonight we're on the lookout for outrageous sexism, so if any of you spot an example of it, you can pull me up short by using your buzzer, or ask one of the boys to do it for you, if you like. Yes, that's an example. Very good. Exactly, you get points for that. Now, and if you're right, you also might get a cuddle. Boys, honestly. No, the boys might get... Oh, right, yeah. Damn, that was an example too, yeah. Anyway, second out, round one. Who was traditionally dressed in pink and called a girl?
Was it Gok Kwan?
No, not Gok Kwan.
Is it Liberace? Is it a person from history? Is it
No, traditionally a whole class of people.
A whole class of people?
Traditionally dressed
the lower
in
class
pink.
is always dressed in pink, so you can spot them.
I don't mean class in that sense, a group of people who were dressed in pink and called a girl.
A girl, as in a girl describing a group of people?
No, but babies. Which babies would you dress in pink?
Female
Girls.
babies.
So boys used to be?
Boys were. That's the one.
Boys.
Until the 20th century, the colours were pink for a baby boy and blue for a baby girl.
How could they be wrong for so long?
Well, maybe we took a wrong turn. But I'll give you an example of Dressmaker magazine from 1900. The preferred colour to dress young boys is in pink. Blue is reserved for girls, as it's presumed paler, and the more dainty of the two colours, and pink is thought to be stronger. And as late as 1927, there was a report about Princess Astrid of Belgium, who had been caught out when she gave birth to a girl because, quote, the cradle had been optimistically outfitted in pink, the colour for boys. Isn't that strange when now every shop has a whole sort of pink corner devoted to girls?
So
I mean, young girls are...
When did this happen? When did we turn around the other way?
Well, that's what I'm saying. 1927, they were still talking about pink for boys.
Really?
Is there something to do with blue being considered quite serene and it's the colour of the Virgin Mary? And...
I think that's all part of it. Yes, they just thought blue was a natural, pale, female colour. But even more extraordinary is the word girl. Right up until the mid-15th century...
Boys were called girls?
Yes. Well, all children...
It's not something...
Yeah, having to rethink everything, aren't they?
That's the most extraordinary episode yet.
All children were called girls.
Girls.
Boy children were called knave girls. And this is even more confusing for us today.
Knave
Girl children were called gay girls.
Yes.
So you had...
I have no problem with that.
Gay girls and knave girls.
I like pink. See, pink. I like pink. Pink make the boys wink. And I think that's right. I've known boys who've been complete winkers. I think it's a marvellous thing, pink.
Sorry. It's a bit sexist, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Jack, I've only just started. This is the beginning, my dear.
I'm going to come down on you like a ton of bricks every time.
You've been the first boy in my life that's done so.
They can get a man on the moon, but they can't get one on Sandy. The word boy was only lately applied to a male child. Before, it just meant a servant. So you'd say boy meaning like waiter or servant.
Yes.
Oh, what the hell went wrong?
It's a very
Those were the
strange thing,
days,
isn't
eh?
it?
Yeah.
Things do change. And the colour pink, so, I mean, everything has to have a pink version, mobile phones.
But is there anything to do with the fact that red used to be the colour for men? I mean, it was a sort of strong Christian colour. And
Uniforms.
so I wonder if
Yeah.
pink is a sort of like a sibling of...
I think it is a
the
mixture
men's
of that.
colour.
That pink was, yes, considered strong and reddish and male, and, as you said, blue, the colour of the Virgin Mary and so on, was considered...
I
you know,
read
serene.
somewhere that monkeys are attracted to pink. The females are attracted to pink because the infant primates have got little pink faces.
Oh, that's very good. That's
Did you
quite
read that or
likely.
just see it on a children's television programme?
It's certainly true that if you dress a baby in pink, mothers, when picking them up, if it's not their own child, will tend to have a pink-dressed baby facing them when they hug it, and a blue-dressed baby facing outwards.
Thrown out the
when
window.
Thrown out the window, all just facing outwards.
All that information you've got, Stephen, and you're so unlikely to use it. It's-
I read a thing that said that they tried an experiment with chimps, I think, and they gave them dolls and trucks or engines to play with, and the boy ones all wanted to play with the trucks and the engines, and the girl ones played with the dolls. How weird is that?
That is...
It is, I have to say, it is very strange. I got 2 daughters and a son, and when my son's the last one, and when he was born, I thought there were going to be no guns whatsoever. So we had no horrible toys, and honestly, he was about 2, and a toilet roll immediately became a machine gun. It is the most...
You can't fight it,
No,
can
there's
you?
nothing, and he likes blue, and they like
Not
pink.
with toilet rolls, no.
No.
Depends on the war.
But of course, even
I
more...
don't hold out for much hope.
But pink, do you know what the traje de luces is?
The what?
The traje de luces?
I thought you'd been unwell.
The suit of lights?
South American thing, is it?
No, it's the thing Matador wears. This is often pink. The Matador's suit, the suit of lights. There's
Oh,
one.
and the
Oh,
lining of his cape is pink.
That's a painful moment.
I mean, something's going to be pink in a minute.
That is...
Tear me a new one. That's
Yes, pink is a strange colour too because it sort of doesn't exist on the spectrum. It's an extra
But aren't girls
spectral
more
colour.
inclined towards the red end of the spectrum? I think that's true. I think
Because
there
of
is a sort of
berries,
a...
foraging.
It's yes,
foraging.
having a little look on the savannah and boys running off towards the blue sky. Is it not some reason why?
Yes, I've heard something similar.
Foraging for lipsticks. They were on trees in primal times.
Do you know that they've done studies of the hunter-gatherer societies and 9/10 of the food is provided by the women? And 1/10 is provided by the men. So the women go, oh, we'll get some berries, and the men come back, and honestly, that bison was this close. yeah, have your berry dinner.
True.
Well, we saw one, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, that sort of counts.
Yeah, we'll get him. Oh, well.
Yeah.
You got any berries?
Yeah.
Well, the truth is that pink used to be the colour for boys, and boys used to be called girls anyway. So with all this confusion, what's the best way to get a girl?
Oh, I
Hello,
think...
darling! Usually works.
VG.
If you need any more than that, they're not interested.
No.
Is it to do with swimming badges? Swimming badges.
Swimming badges.
Yes, well, you know how some people can swim and they're fantastically fast, but they haven't got a lot of stamina. And then some people can swim and they're not very fast, but they've got fantastic stamina. And boy sperm are the ones who...
yes.
Boy sperm swim fantastically fast, but they die pretty quickly. And girl sperm take an awfully
Can
long
I
time.
just... So there's a flaw in
know
your
girls had
argument.
sperm.
Girls' sperm, we don't have sperm.
No.
I
You
was
see,
listening and I...
You heard,
No,
you
but
picked
that's
up.
true.
Yeah.
Yes, there are lots
Stammer.
of theories about it. Do you know any others?
Oh, is it something to do with diet? Probably.
Diet is the current one, yes. For example, calories. If you had a higher calorie intake before being impregnated, out of 100, 56 had boys.
So you don't want to have cream cakes just before?
If you want a girl, no.
you want a girl.
Exactly. Also, women who ate at least one bowl of breakfast cereal a day were 87% more likely to have boys than those who ate no more than one bowl a week, which is quite... That's a...
No, darling, that's tosh. That's put out by Kellogg's. What's the name?
It does look rather extraordinary,
That's
doesn't it?
ridiculous.
Women who had boys ate about 400 calories more daily than those who had girls on average.
Those people who had Cocoa Pops had chimpanzees. I don't...
very bizarre one. I don't know whom this would benefit commercially. Women infected with hepatitis B virus are 1.5 times more likely to give birth to a male.
It's not a good reason to get it.
It isn't. No. We're certainly not encouraging it. But there is one certain way, which is embryo selection, of course, which in America and Thailand in particular is very popular. It costs about $18,000 US.
Wow.
A friend of ours had a baby in Thailand, English couple.
Oh, really?
And the Thai women said to her, if you look lovely and you're pregnant, you'll have a girl. If you look tired and ugly, dress badly, you'll have boy. And she said, what do you think I'm going to have? Boy.
Outrageous!
And she did.
And she did, oh my God, it works.
They are different species, though, the boys and the girls things. I was walking down the road, I remember, with my 2 girls and my son, and we were walking along the high street, and my son suddenly went, ha! Like this, for no reason. And the girls and I both turned to him and went, what?
It was probably a secret agent around the corner, yeah?
Yeah. Something, I don't know.
Is that possible?
Actually, Ronnie and I were talking about how wonderful boys are, because they live in this kind of very kind of clear world about themselves. And when my son was about 6, he had a friend over, and his friend said, what's it like having 2 mummies then? He said, it's marvellous. And he said, if one of them's poorly, you've still got one to do for you.
Excellent child. Excellent child, I like.
Do for you.
The glorious self-centred of it.
Well, there are other theories. Aristotle thought the diet of the mother and the sexual position used at conception made a difference. So he was half right, it seems, with the diet. Anaxagoras thought boys and girls came out of different testicles. So you would tie off the testicle you didn't want the gender.
They're just making it up as they go. Based on nothing at all.
The Talmud suggests aligning the bed north-south before sex, and then you get a boy.
Why don't they just all wait and see?
Yeah, that's the best way, you're right. The French thought wearing boots to bed might help having a boy.
What have the boots got to do with it?
I've no idea. It does seem most strange.
Nowadays, you'll find if you've got the football on during, you'll have a boy.
Oh, yes,
That works.
that would, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That would definitely work.
If you've got the football on, you'll be lucky to having sex at all. That's a woman who's lost the will to live.
You'd be surprised how easy it is to get the football on without it being noticed. You don't always need the sound on. If you know who's playing.
If you're working the remote while you're doing the business.
We've all heard the rustle of a magazine from the other end. So.
Oh, dear.
Are you reading a magazine? No.
Anyway, sex selection is a tricky business. French folklore suggests wearing your boots in bed, but modern research suggests it's much more to do with diet. Now, why don't we have more women as guests on QI? You may well ask.
Oh, I know this. No, please.
Say
That's
together.
so female. No, after you.
Oh.
Is it because women are just not funny? Yeah.
No, that's right. But we're good at other things. We're good at raising kittens and knitting cakes.
Yeah. I've heard this a lot. I've heard that women aren't funny, and I think there's a truth in this. I think that there is a scientific, possibly, relationship between a sense of humour and the male sex organ.
People are always laughing at mine.
Yeah, well, there you are.
Is this to do with the fact that people always say there aren't as many female comedians as there are men? Because you know what? There are loads of female comedians. It's just that we just don't see them because they're systematically rounded up and kept in a pen just outside Harwich. Yes, Harwich. But you can go and see them and you can adopt them online. Yeah. And you can go and you can visit them and you can feed them lines and you might get a joke back sometimes. And then sometimes some of them escape and they disguise themselves as male comedians. But you can always tell which ones the male comedians are, the ones with the beards. Just like Life of Brian.
Bill Bailey.
Bill Bailey.
Clearly a woman.
But you know, it's really rare to be allowed to sit next to a female comedian. I don't know what they're worried that our cycles will suddenly synchronise or something.
I'm not. I'm in disguise. I'm Laurie Bremner. I'm actually...
Is it because once you get them started, they don't shut up?
What do we do about it?
Oh, I say. But recent studies appear to have shown an interesting thing, which is that women laugh more, but they laugh less at women. Women laugh more at men. Audiences generally laugh more at men, but women themselves do more laughing.
I don't know. I suppose men are more willing to make prats of themselves.
Yes, I think there is an element to that. I mean, the really, truly great female comedians, of course, do make prats. There's Lucille Ball, people like that.
And there's a strange division that girls have either got to be sort of fey and look slightly stupid, or they can be like myself, not terribly attractive, wear a pink jacket and go. No, but I mean, there's an interesting interesting thing about if you think about the kind of Goldie Hawn, for example, played ditzy and is one of the most successful Hollywood producers of all time.
Yes, very smart. But played stupid, yeah.
But just as Sandy says, as a woman, they want to sort of categorise you more.
Yes.
The men and the women. What is she doing here? Is she doing the fat man-hater thing? Is she doing the fake?
Certainly, in the early days, the sort of modern stand-up movement, when it started in the 80s, almost all female comedians, their subject was being a woman. Whereas male comedians, their subject was not being a man. In other words, women were treating themselves as if they were a minority. When in fact, they're 51% of the population.
Women don't have the history in comedy, you know, in the era of the great silent comics. We were all being tied to railway tracks while they were all being, you know, hanging
happy
from...
days. But
There was, I think it was Germaine Greer who said there are only two things that women don't do as well as men, and that's design dresses and cook. Which is kind of an amusing thing, that actually almost all the great chefs are men and all the great couturiers are men, and yet the one thing we used to think about women is, oh, you know, put them in the kitchen and make them design dresses. So, according to an American study, if we had more women on the show, the panel would laugh more, but the audience would laugh less, perversely. Now, where and when would you find the most violent women in history?
Basildon.
Basildon? Basildon?
I was going to say first day of the sales.
As well.
Well, there have been lots of... There's a wonderful woman called Princess Kutalun, who was the niece of Kublai Khan, the great Mongol leader. And Marco Polo says she was the fiercest of all the warriors. And I love this, OK? She's the niece of Kublai Khan. And he reckoned she should get married. So she said, fair enough, I like being a soldier, but I tell you what, I will wrestle any man who wants to marry me. And if he wins, he can marry me. And if he loses, he has to give me 100 horses. And she ended up unmarried with 10,000 horses. How much do we love her?
Wow.
Yeah. But, I mean, Amazons and...
Yes, and the Amazons were a mythical race of warrior women. They were known as the Amazons.
Xena the warrior princess.
There was, yes.
She was tough.
She may have been made-uppy, though, Alan, I hate to say it.
That was a documentary.
I'm not going to be the one to destroy you.
Doesn't Gaddafi have Amazons? He has... Well, he calls them Amazons.
We're in the right continent. It's Benin.
Benin?
Yeah.
Hardest women in the world.
Yeah. It was called Dahomey before, and the army of Dahomey in the 19th century protected the king, and they were extraordinary. There they are. Wow. They were very extraordinary women. They had to be nominal wives of the king, although they were celibate.
Do you not think they look like the wild card on Britain's Got Talent? Do you not?
They were chosen for their aggression. The husband could actually nominate his wife if his wife was a nag, which seems rather unpleasant. But they carried a type of switchblade that was capable of cutting a man in two. Oddly enough, some people saw their plight as tragic and said they had to surrender their womanhood, turn into men and despise women, where others said, well, they were venerated. When they walked through the streets, they were accompanied by slave girls ringing a bell, and all men had to avert their eyes.
See, that might be a better life.
Yeah.
It's like the eunuchs.
Eunuchs had a good life.
Well, you speak for yourself, Alan.
Don't you sometimes wish?
I quite like the idea of the slave girl walking ahead of me ringing a bell.
Recent statistics have been rather astonishing. Female violent crime in this country has risen over the last 3 years by 25%.
Is that to do with alcohol?
Well, yes, probably, because drunk women have 50% more testosterone coursing about their blood. 50%.
They're drinking the wrong thing.
Alcohol causes the stimulation and production of female... I mean, women have testosterone, just as men have, you know, lady things. Estrogen and so forth.
Lady.
Yeah.
Nipples,
Nipples, yeah, we have nipples.
Well, the basic human form is female, isn't it? Because you start
That is
out with
very
2
basic,
X's and
yeah.
then you get one broken one.
Oh,
That's
boy.
your basic model.
The basic model is female.
If you want any of the extras,
Add-ons.
the add-ons, it's going to cost
Sunroof. Yeah. Nice specs.
leather steering wheel,
ABS.
whatever.
Right.
Yeah, let's talk about car for a minute.
We got there in the end.
But yes, that's right. 2% fall for boy violent crime and a 25% rise in girl violence.
So the boys all over Britain going, leave it, it's not worth it.
Yeah, right, exactly. But,
You know what she's like, she starts...
And girl bullying is not nice, is it?
No, they
you're
can be-
very good. I mean, if you wanted to be, you're very good at mental torture. It has to
Yeah,
be said.
especially now with the mobile phone, they just
Oh.
keep texting you until you break down.
Oh.
In the classroom, suddenly girls suddenly go, what's happening?
Do you know,
Texting me.
I arrived in this country at the age of 14. I'd been thrown out of school in the United States, and it's hard to imagine now, but I arrived with a very thick New York accent. And I was sent to boarding school, and for 6 weeks, nobody spoke to me. What, 6 weeks? I know it's like a therapy for me, this programme. And, and then one night we were watching... I thought, I have to change my accent, and one night we were watching Brief Encounter with Trevor Howard and Celia Johnson. I thought, I'm going to speak like that. And that's why I sound like I'm trapped in a black and white film, but it was. to do with bullying. To do with bullying at school. Well, you went to your own fair share of bullying at school, Stephen. It's not a fun thing.
Yeah, well, sort of. But I found a very useful one was if you were physically bullied, is to say, no, 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 don't, you'll give me an erection. It's worked incredibly well. Worked really, really useful. You could try it. I won't take responsibility. Anyway, yeah. Yeah. Yes, the fighting women of Dahomey were the bodyguard of the 19th century kings of Benin. Henpecked husbands used to volunteer their wives for the job. Now we're off to China. What does new shoe mean to Chinese women?
Well, Nanshu is writing. Is it something to do with writing?
It is. Do you know what kind of writing? New shoe is a very particular kind of writing. It's a Zhejiang county in Hunan province. It was invented entirely by women for women.
lady writing.
It's lady writing.
Lady writing.
So only ladies can understand.
Yeah, well, because women were not educated formally at all, not even taught how to read and write. And over centuries, they developed a secret code which was actually a phonetic writing, unlike Chinese
They
characters.
uncovered all these books, How to Poison Your Man.
Well, kind of. It was called Nushu. And when one of them married, they would be given a book by these secret female friendship groups. And they'd each write in the book and leave a lot of blank pages so that they could write their secret thoughts down. And the men would never be able to read it, but only other women would.
It's very
That's
sly,
like,
isn't
that's like our culture, really. There's loads of words that women know, but men don't have a clue about. You know,
Like no.
like sorry,
Aye.
fidelity, responsibility.
Commitment.
We have a secret language in this country. It's called an instruction manual.
Oh, yes.
If you want to hide something on your computer from a man, put it in a folder marked instructions and he will never open it. It's like a secret language. Yes.
Hello, darling!
Sexist. Sexist, you're right. So points against. And they would send them because they couldn't take them to their women friends very often. For what reason? It's a horrible, gruesome reason.
Couldn't walk. Because of their feet.
Couldn't walk.
Because of their
bound
feet.
Because their
Yes,
feet, the
what
banned
do you
feet.
tell me about foot binding?
Lotus, were they called lotus flowers, weren't
Well,
they, when they were banned? When they were very young, they used to
5
break,
years old.
break all the bones
Yeah.
in the foot, and they would bend it
Bend it round
right
underneath
round,
the underneath the foot.
underneath the foot,
Yeah.
and then it would be
3
bound. So they'd be
inches
like little,
was
they'd
the
be like
ideal.
literally
Yeah.
little bound.
They
little
become the
hooves.
stumps like hoofs.
Yeah.
They'd be jammed into this, and many of them would rot, suppurate, die of gangrene. And this went on for almost 1,000 years.
But how ironic, then, to come up with a writing system called New Shoe.
It was a bit. It was a bit grim.
They would write in tapestry messages to each other.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the Bayeux Tapestry is actually not about the Battle of Hastings at all. It's a complex soup recipe. There are other separate languages, aren't there? I think
Yes.
in Africa there are... I'm trying to think whether it's the Bantu or the Xhosa people, that when women go to... Say you and I got married, Stephen.
Yes. The contingency is a remote one.
I would no longer be allowed to use any syllable that was in your name. It's the language of respect that women have to use. So, say I wanted a stevedore over for a fry-up.
Hey. You couldn't say...
Just to please you.
But actually, you don't share any
You'd have to say a door and up with that. You couldn't say...
Yeah, I couldn't. I'd have to say a docker coming over for breakfast. I couldn't use any of the syllables that are in your...
Wow.
Is that how Ronnie Barker got started?
I think so.
Might be. Well, of course, there are. I mean, there was Pig Latin as a secret language, where you take the first syllable and put it at the end with an A on the end.
That's it, yes, I remember.
So quite interesting would be white K.
Quiteinteresting a.
Yes, exactly.
S-E-A.
Yeah. Interesting. Yes.
Oh,
exactly.
you scholar.
Interesting in A. Yeah.
20 more where that came from.
The Germans have something called Löffelsprache, which I think something means spoon speak, and the French have louche ben, and there's Peleshki, and the Japanese have babi boubebo, which is their little amusing nonsense language. But these are nonsense languages where you apply a very simple rule and it sounds very quickly nonsense. Like, there's a very camp sort of high church one where they call Holy Communion haggers kamaggers, and that sort of thing. Weird. And they just go, oh, Jessica Christ. They do.
Teenagers sound the same in every language, I have noticed.
Teenagers?
Yeah, you can say... Any language that means yes. You go, oui. Would you like some more croissant? Oui. It's always the same.
Do you ever say to a teenager, look at me? They can't look... They can look everywhere else apart from at your face. And then when they do eventually concede to look at you, they go...
That's very true indeed. Lorks. Anyway, the women of Jangyong had a secret language all of their own. And talking of secrets, what does your granny have in common with a killer whale? Yes, Ronnie.
They've both got stomachs full of plastic bags that they've eaten by mistake. My granny is actually being hunted by the Japanese for research purposes. At this very moment.
Free Willy.
No, the thing is, actually, the Japanese always use the excuse of hunting whales.
Yeah.
They say it's research.
Yeah.
What else do they need to know about a whale? What else? Can't they get another book out or watch a David Attenborough program?
Yeah.
What they mean is we want to research how it tastes in a sandwich.
If it's my Scandinavian granny, it would be the ability to take a single herring and stretch it into a meal for four.
Oddly enough, you made reference to some particular stage that women go through, which grannies tend to have gone through, which you talked about flushes and things.
Flushes is
flushes, so the menopause. The menopause is the
Orca in the menopause.
Well, oddly enough...
Is that why she's jumping out of the water? She's always hot in there.
Killer whales are the only animals, other than human beings, that have this enormous gap between menopause and death. In other words, they have a menopause and then a very active and useful and happy life.
They're also matrilineal, aren't they? So the granny would presumably be in charge, I would imagine.
Yes, and it's thought that it's because... You mentioned this, oddly enough, when you talked about hunter-gatherers, and that it was the women who provided the nutrition. And it seems that it was often the elder women who gathered the berries and the nutrition that kept... And so it seems to be a slow human survival thing, that older women are the ones who actually, the grandmothers, keep the family going and therefore their own genes. Yeah.
Grannies can be vicious, I have to say, because the killer whale in captivity can kill its handler, and my granny got thrown out of 3 care homes, which I think is...
Wow! What
I was so proud of her. Bad behaviour. Couldn't have been prouder. They kept ringing up and saying, we need another word. Oh, Granny, not again. Try and be pleasant.
It is interesting. When you see a big family, you see the grandmother and the children, and in the middle, the poor mother. And the grandmother and the children are so alike. The grandmothers are being childish and bossy and greedy, and the children are being childish and bossy and greedy. And the poor, we've got this terrible period in between when we are not allowed to be either a child or a grandmother.
My mother grew up in Maidstone in Kent during the Battle of Britain, and their entire street of terraced houses was bombed, apart from their house. And I said to my mother, why not your house? She said, oh, Granny wouldn't have allowed it.
Excellent. Maybe then, I think we might all agree what Britain needs is more grannies.
Yeah.
More grannies.
Britain's
Power.
got grannies.
Yeah, Britain's got grannies. Oh, God.
Do you think it would be great if only grandmothers could join the army? Do you not think it would be the most fabulous thing? Because, for a start, if you're going to invade somewhere, right, it would take a really long time to organise the coach. And then you'd finally get there and everybody'd need a wee.
And then all the kit would be all crocheted, wouldn't it?
And then you'd show pictures to the people you've arrived, you know, to invade. You'd say, oh, look at my children, and there'd be a lot of... And then you think, oh, let's have a cup of tea while we've stopped, and a bit of a tidy, by which time your appetite for fighting would have been diminished, I would have thought.
And they'd fiddle around with the gun. Oh, it's not working. Oh. And then constantly a draft.
Like Christopher with
They're so angry at drafts. Ooh! Ooh! Ooh!
That's the answer to the world's problems, darling. Armies of grannies.
Anyway, human females are the only mammals, apart from killer whales, known to pass through menopause. But what's going on here?
Ooh.
Yay.
Is it half hen, half cock?
It is exactly half cock, yeah. It is exactly that. It's half hen, half cock. Right
a
down...
freakish accident?
Down the middle. It is a freakish accident.
Done by design?
No, it's not done by any kind of scientist. It's a rare enough thing.
I literally guessed that because of the theme of the programme.
Well done. Yeah, you see? Using your male intelligence for once.
Oh, I feel so foolish now.
It's called bilateral gynandromorphic hermaphroditism.
I was going to say that.
Yeah. We're dealing with chromosomes again. All cells on one side of the animal, male. All cells on the right, female. Doesn't happen in humans. Oh, I don't know how that would work.
It's quite good fun, though, isn't it?
It would be fun,
If you're
yes.
at a party, you stand that way.
Lord!
Shall I wipe my bottom with my lady hand or my man? Gently or roughly?
But clownfish. Do you remember, did you ever see the film Finding Nemo?
Yes,
Yes.
that's a clownfish.
Yes.
A clownfish.
They're fierce.
They are. There
I
they
know
go.
a bit about them. They have a relationship with that anemone, so that
Yeah, they
anemone
always
is
live in those-
normally
yeah.
poisonous to other fish, but they are immune to it, and they would have their babies in there. And then if you try and get near them, they come at you.
They're quite
fierce.
Yep, they are.
Territorial.
But do you know about their gender assignations?
Is
Up
it
to them.
variable?
It is sort of up to them, yes. What happens is you have one female and one dominant male, and the rest are all rather weakly and not very fit or sexually active males. And if the female dies, the active male then becomes female, and one of the weakling males becomes the alpha male. It's sort of really weird. Isn't that extraordinary?
How extraordinary.
Yeah, they're very unusual like that. Rather splendid. So the story of Finding Nemo and his father would have been a very different... His father would have been his mother by the time he got to him. The whole thing would have been very odd.
Where have you been? What?
It would have been a very strange...
Do you think these animals know that that's what's going to happen to them, or they're just instinct? Do they actually... Does he know, you know, I hope you don't die, because if you die,
I'm gonna have to
then
let
I
you
have
go.
to have it off with all the other blokes. I'm not into that.
It's a very...
They wake up one morning and go, oh, no, what's happened to me?
A change. The change. It is a very strange thought. Yes, bilateral gynandromorphic hermaphrodites are male on one side, female on the other. You think that's bizarre? What should you do if you meet a nun with hairy hands?
I would assume that it was a man on the run,
Yes.
disguised as a nun.
In the 1940s, there was a big scare about hairy nuns.
It's something to do with the Second World War.
Yeah.
Urban myth now.
It's an urban myth. They thought that
Being parachuted?
Nazis
The
would
Nazis
parachute
would
in.
come in dressed as...
Yes, basically.
Now, look out. We're expecting them to come as nuns. Be aware of nuns.
If you see a
Look
nun,
at the hands.
check the hand. Basically, that's right.
They
So
did
people
have
going
it.
up to nuns and going, halt!
Exactly. They were told they could be spotted everywhere on buses, tubes and trains from the south coast to the Scottish Islands. They were said to be given away when they reached out a hand to pay their fare or when they dropped something and stretched to pick it up, thus revealing the hairiness of their hands and forearms. In some cases, they might have had Hitler's face tattooed on their arms.
Would they not have covered that up?
You'd think.
When they
You'd
lifted
have
their
thought,
habit.
wouldn't you?
If she's driving a tank, that's a giveaway.
Do you ever get women with... I've never seen a woman with hairy hands. Hairy everything else, but
yes.
hairy hands... Really? Have you ever seen
Well,
that?
I'm sure. I don't
must
know
be
any,
some.
but there must be.
Because the
ladies with
moustaches, as
hairy
you
hair.
say, are common enough, and hairy legs, obviously, but you're right. Back of hand, I've not seen. Have you ever grown a moustache?
I tried to, for a thing.
Yeah. Well, it didn't work, didn't take.
Didn't really like
Did you
it.
try it under glass?
Then I had to do a part recently, and they said, oh, can you give it... We need a couple of weeks' growth. and it started to go grey.
That is deeply upsetting, yes.
I was quite unhappy about that.
Yeah, no.
And then my wife told me that you have already got a grey pube. I said, have I? She goes, yeah, you have.
Well, or was that someone else?
Good point. It's a fair point, well made. I'll check properly.
But there were other things to test if someone was German. Do you know what these might have been? If they spoke very good English, but you wanted to check whether they were German? There were English words, particular words that are pronounced oddly, words of surnames. Here are some, for example. So what's the top one? How would you pronounce
Fanshawe.
that? Fanshawe. Yes. Did you know that was pronounced?
No, I didn't know that at all.
Chumley.
Chumley, the second one.
Barclay.
Barclay.
Mannering, as in Captain Mannering.
I
And
don't know, the bottom is Belvoir, is it?
the bottom is Beaver.
Beaver.
Beaver, the Vale of Beaver.
I'm going to have that if I ever became a dame or anything.
Dame.
Dame, and I say, no, it's pronounced beaver.
With your
You could just say that about Toxvig.
Yeah, I could, yeah.
Sandy
It's
with...
pronounced beaver.
There was a member of this aristocratic family here, Tollmache, spelt T-O-L-L-E-M-A-C-H-E, Tollmache. There was the Tollmache family, it's double-barrelled, same name, but each half was pronounced differently.
Oh, no.
So it was pronounced Toolmake-Tollmache. The Toolmake-Tollmaches, and they had the longest name in the British Army, one of their number. Leon Sextus Dennis Oswald Frodati Filius Tollmache de Oriana Plantagenet Tollmache. But his elder brother, right, is Leolf Idwallo Odin Nestor Egbert Lionel Turdmag Hugh Chenwine Saxon Isa Cromwell Ormond Neville Dysart Plantagenet Toolmake Tollmache. That was his name, which the initials spelt out Lionel II. So, yes, during World War II, it was feared that the German paratroopers would be disguised as nuns. Now, to break down the walls of mutual misunderstanding with a look at general ignorance, so dainty fingers and great big mitts on buzzers, if you please. You're sitting in a dimly lit bar, girls and boys, with a saucy little poppet. How can you be sure she's not a bloke?
Hello, darling! You ask her a question, if she asks you a question back, it's a woman. No, as in, if you say to a bloke, do you know where the post office is, he'll say it's down there. And if you say to a woman, do you know where the post office is, she'll say, do you want to buy a stamp? Trying to be helpful,
Yes.
but asking you...
That's true.
Yeah, boys sit with their legs apart, don't they, on bar stools?
There are things like
Girls
that.
sit with their...
Yeah, we were wondering whether you might say Adam's apple, and we would have forfeited you, because women do have Adam's apples.
Right.
You probably know you have an Adam's apple.
It's not as big, it's...
Not as... Sometimes, on some women, it can be quite pronounced. There's a woman, a girl, a lady person with quite an Adam's apple there. It's called the prominentia laryngea, is the medical name for it, and it's around the larynx.
So that's what you're looking at, someone you think someone's a
might,
drag.
but it's no proof, is the point. And basically, a good ladyboy can imitate almost anything female in terms of how they hold the legs and, you know, and everything like that.
Not hands or feet.
Well, some women, as you say, have large hands and large feet, you know, and a dainty ladyboy can easily fool, and often has. As you know, to your cost.
What an expensive night that was.
Moving on, the truth is that without undressing them or testing their DNA, you can't be sure what sex someone is, so be careful out there. Why are men better than women at reading maps? Yep.
They're not, I would say. They're not better than women. Yeah, I'm so trying
Your
not
one
to...
attempt to be decent.
Yes.
Backfired horribly.
Something to do with the brain.
Spatial, yeah.
Spatial
Testosterone,
awareness.
again. It's your old... Isn't it testosterone again?
Well, what it's to do with grey matter and white matter in the brain. And MRI equipment has shown, oddly enough, that in a test group of men and women with average IQ scores amongst the two genders roughly equal, similar.
That'd be absurd.
Hey!
They found a
When given intelligence tests, men use 6.5 times more grey matter than women. Women use 9 times as much white matter. Grey matter is central to processing information, plays a vital role in aiding skills such as mathematics, map reading, intellectual thought. White matter connects the brain's processing centres central to emotional thinking, use of language, the ability to do more than one thing at once. I know they're all cliches, you know, words, emotional thinking, multitasking women are better at, but it does seem that the evidence indicates that this is the case.
So sorry.
No, I would say...
Is it the white matter that makes you think it's OK to wind the window down and ask the way?
Yes, because that's right. Also, the superiority in language, which seems to be a female thing, you prefer to ask, whereas a man would prefer to look at visual cues,
but that's just
spatial.
male.
The only reason
Well,
we don't
a lot
like
of it's
asking
pride
is
too.
you always get the idiot, don't you, when you stop and ask, and do you know the way to the Tesco?
Well, they say, in 2 miles you come to a bridge, a mile before that, turn left.
I once stopped in Ireland, stopped an elderly man. I was lost, and I asked him the way, and I said, I can't remember the names of the places. I said, do you know the way to Duncannon? And he said, did you not want to go to Cahterine? And I said, no, I want to go to Duncannon. He said, that's a pity, because I know the way to Cahterine.
That is very Eccles, isn't it? It's superb. Well, it does seem that men are better at spatial awareness problems and women are better at vocabulary problems. And finally, one last fanfare to unfairness. What is unfair about the prize money at Wimbledon? Yes.
They only give it to you if you're really, really good at tennis.
Very damnably unfair.
Nothing.
Really?
Not anymore.
No, it's very unfair.
Is it still unfair?
Yes,
unfair?
women get more money for playing than men.
Yeah.
Oh, per set, you mean? You're talking...
Yeah, men play a lot more
discrepancy,
tennis
but-
and get less money. Yeah, I'll show you how it goes. When it started in 1884, the ladies' champion won a 20-guinea silver flower basket, while the men got a 30-guinea gold trophies. By 2006, 625,000 for Amélie Mauresmo, who played 142 games, versus just £30,000 more for Roger Federer, who played 202 games. And the best women were earning more than the best men because their shorter matches allowed them to compete in both doubles tournaments as well as the singles. The rate per game told the story. In 2005, the final 8 women earned an average of £1,432 per game against the men's 993.
How much do they win now if they win?
It's equal for the
Is it
first prize. The
$500,000?
women's champion
About
gets the same prize
£750,000.
as the men's champion, but the men's champion plays a lot more tennis.
But be fair, the women, they've got to come off and make the tea as well.
And women get more from sponsorship.
And
oddly
also,
enough.
$500,000, that's not that much when you think 50% will go to tax, 15% will go to their agent, then they've got to
Isn't that
buy
true
all
for the
their
men as
balls, and they've got to buy the sticky stuff to wrap round the racket. That's very expensive.
do the
then
men.
it's the Southfields, they've got to get a travel card. That's
So
only
do the men.
£6. They're left with about £1.50 after all that.
Anyway, now that male and female tennis players get the same prize money, it's arguably unfair to men who work harder and longer for less money overall. Which brings us to the end of our hard work and the gleanings of our genders. Oh, my goodness me. Let's discover who's wearing the trousers here. Well, my heavens. The winners are the ladies' team with between them +8. It breaks down as 3 for Ronnie and 5 for Sandy, but the boys, I'm afraid, have come last with -5. That's all. In this edition of QI, so it's good night from Ronnie, Sandy, Jack, Alan and me. Hopefully the real winner tonight has been mutual understanding and respect. I leave you with this thought from Canadian feminist Charlotte Whitten. Whatever women do, they must do it twice as well as men to be thought half as good. Luckily, that isn't difficult. Good night.
Nathan's not feeling himself, and guess who wants his body back? Starting with a double bill, it's brand new Heroes next on BBC Two. Or catch up with Gavin and Stacey. Series 3, showing in full, is about to start on BBC Three.